This is a KOAT Action 7 News Commitment 2025 Mayoral Debate Special.
Good evening, I'm Doug Fernandez. Welcome to our debate between most of the candidates for Albuquerque mayor. There are now 6 candidates competing to lead our city over the next 4 years. Alphabetically, they're U.S. veteran and former Sandoval County Deputy Manager Mayleen Armijo, 2-term incumbent Mayor Tim Keller, Albuquerque City Councilor Luis Sanchez, former U.S. Attorney Alex Ubaez, former Albuquerque Deputy Fire Chief Eddie Varela, and former Bernalillo County Sheriff Darren White. Daniel Chavez also qualified to appear on the ballot, but he has withdrawn from the campaign. Well, because of the large field and our limited amount of time, we have invited 4 candidates to our debate. KOAT management based their decision primarily on the results of last month's Albuquerque Journal KOAT poll, as well as campaign finance reports. Here are those reports for September, when the decision was made. This does not include any money the candidates have contributed themselves. Tim Keller has the biggest pot, qualifying for more than $757,000 in public financing. Mayleen Armijo, nearly $23,000 in front of Luis Sanchez, with Eddie Varela 5th. In the poll, Keller leading among likely voters who know who they plan to vote for. Varela and Armijo at the bottom with 2% and 1% respectively. But the biggest group of all, 37% of voters, are undecided. Now, we invited both Armijo and Varela to sit down for extended interviews with KOAT covering many of the same issues we're going to be talking about tonight, but both of them declined our offer. Well, journalists with the Partners for Impact will ask the questions tonight. They are KOAT Action 7 News anchor Shelley Rabando, Capitol reporter for the Albuquerque Journal Dan Boyd, and morning host on News Radio KKOB Bob Clark. Now, here is our format, agreed to by all 4 campaigns. Each candidate will have an uninterrupted 30 seconds for an opening statement. For each question, the candidates will each have 1 minute to answer. As moderator, I have the discretion to grant candidates 30 seconds for a rebuttal. And we'll end with giving each candidate another uninterrupted 30 seconds for closing statements. Volunteers from the League of Women Voters are keeping track of time. They will use a series of red, yellow, and green lights mounted on the cameras to help the candidates know how much time they have left. Now, we held a series of drawings for the campaigns last week. Those determined their podium positions as well as the speaking order for opening and closing statements. And for our questions, we start opening statements with Darren White.
Thank you. Albuquerque is at a tipping point. Record-breaking crime, over 750 homicides in less than 8 years. The homeless problem is so out of control that city employees are being sent out to clean up human waste, and businesses are struggling to survive, many of them closing down, like Griff's Hamburgers, a favorite of Albuquerque for over 60 years. It was bulldozed because the owner said it was no longer safe for their customers. We can't keep electing the same person and expecting a different result.
Mr. Sanchez, go ahead, please.
Thank you. My name is Luis Sanchez, and I'm running for mayor because we need a change. We need a new direction in our city. I'm a retired police officer, I'm a business owner, and I'm a current city councilor. I have been contributing to this city and helping our citizens for the last several years by bringing up economic growth and also making sure that the rest of our city is safe. I will bring back integrity, transparency, and experience to Albuquerque. Under a Luis Sanchez mayoral administration.
Mr. Sanchez. Thank you. Mr. Ubaez, you have 30 seconds as well.
Tonight you're going to hear an incumbent try to defend a broken system and 2 challengers complain about it. As a lifetime public servant, I know that the people of Albuquerque are ready for someone who delivers results. That I have locked up child predators and cartel bosses, uncovered 30 years of corruption in Tim's DWI unit because nobody is above the law. And I know that people are ready for people who will do real work and deliver real results with care and with consequences in Albuquerque that works for everyone.
Thank you. Our final opening statement comes from Tim Keller.
You know, these are tough times. We have national problems, we have Albuquerque's old problems, and we have a president trying to divide us. Now more than ever, we need strong, experienced leadership. Now you asked me to face these challenges head on, to do the real work, to solve real problems. And deep change takes time. It's not the flip of a switch. It's not just changing out a person. It takes hard work every day for years. And now we're seeing real progress. We know what's working, and now is no time to change direction. That's why I stand before you, the only candidate with a specific game plan and the guts to see it through.
Mr. Keller, time is up. Thank you. We start our debate tonight on crime. Our first question is from Shelley Rabando of KOAT. Shelley.
Doug, thanks. Albuquerque has seen persistent concerns around violent crime and property crime. What specific strategies would you implement to reduce crime while balancing community trust in law enforcement?
Mr. Sanchez, you go first.
Thank you. I'm born and raised in this community, and one of the things that we do oftentimes as police officers is we call it the grandmother test. If your grandmother is not feeling safe, then we have a problem. Crime's 50% higher than the national average in Albuquerque, and that is another issue. I've experienced crime, homelessness, defecation, urination in front of my office, and I know the citizens of Albuquerque and business owners are feeling the same. We're not enforcing laws at the lower level. It's so important that we enforce laws at the lower level and the laws that are in the books. Once we start doing that, we will see a change in the way people react and the way the individuals react out there. And at that point, maybe we can get some help and put people into directed services that they need to move forward and get a house.
Thank you. Mr. Ubayas, you are next.
Public safety is a public good. In order to deliver for the people of Albuquerque, we need to build a unified countywide 911 system staffed with first responders. We need to reach outreach, prevention, and intervention to stop crime before it happens. We need to focus our efforts strategically on the most serious of crimes. And then we need to focus on reentry when folks have paid their debt to society, making sure they can come back into our community and be full members. It is our responsibility to deliver public safety and the feeling of safety to the people of Albuquerque.
Thank you. Mr. Keller, you are next.
You know, when I came in, our police department was literally falling apart. Officers were leaving, they had lost trust, we were under a DOJ consent decree, and crime was going up. Now we've rebuilt APD, and we fight crime a different way, with technology and civilians. That's why I put gunshot detection and license plate readers all over the city. And that's why we created the Community Safety Department, to be civilians that respond to calls to free up officers so they can fight violent crime. If we keep using technology and civilians, we have a chance of fighting crime in the right way and also making sure that we're dealing with the underlying issues around fentanyl and things that are the drivers of crime, including housing and homelessness. That's what we need. It's a complicated answer because it's a complicated question, but we know it's working.
And Mr. White.
It's not a complicated question. I believe the fundamental role of government is to keep people safe. And that's exactly the way that I will lead. I will hire a new chief of police, one who's a strong and inspirational leader, one that the officers can be proud of and one that the public can be proud of as well. We got to get back to proactive policing, where officers go out and they conduct traffic stops. When they're doing that, they're also getting people who are wanted for warrants, sometimes violent warrants. They're also looking at and finding people that are up to no good. We also have the command staff of the police department is bloated, and it has 50 people in it, as the chief says. And so we need to reduce that and move those out into the streets where they can fight crime. And finally, I want to have a juvenile crime unit. We all know that our juvenile criminals, they're getting younger and they're getting more vicious, and we have to have a department and officers who are designed to meet that challenge.
And our next question is from Dan Boyd with the Albuquerque Journal. Dan.
Good evening. Governor Michelle Lujan Grisham authorized the deployment of the New Mexico National Guard troops to Albuquerque in April while citing a crime-related emergency. Do you support having National Guard members deployed in the city, and would you advocate for future such deployments?
Mr. Ubayas, you are first.
As a career attorney and someone who has worked for the Department of Justice for the past 10 years, I know that this gave up two key legal arguments and set a terrible precedent for our city going forward under the Trump administration. What we saw was we declared an emergency of crime, just like Trump did. We deployed National Guard, just like Trump did. Now the only final step here is for us to say, no, Trump, you cannot take over our National Guard or deploy National Guard here. We never should have broken these two precedents and invited this into our city. If we were to use the National Guard, there are meaningful ways to do it, right? Their job and their mission is to deliver food, to deliver health care, to build temporary housing for folks, because the true crisis that we are facing here is homelessness. It is not crime. And so while crime overlaps with this, the true focus of deployment of our resources here should have been to helping people in this city, not policing them.
Mr. Keller, your reply?
You know, this is a great example of the difference in this campaign. Using the National Guard was something that we did together with our governor in a way that works for our city. We said they're going to do civilian work, and they're going to actually support APD to free up officers so they can fight violent crime. It's very much in step with the civilianization approach that I've been using so that our police department is more effective. It also helps prevent actually the president from using our National Guard because they're already deployed. This is something we knew in advance, and this is something we worked on together. But you see us doing it our way, and that's the key. It's not a national answer, it's an Albuquerque answer. If the National Guard can actually help our police department in the back office by doing traffic and by doing things that officers shouldn't be doing in the first place, of course we should say yes. That is a version of humanitarian and civilian aid, and that's what the National Guard is for. Now that doesn't mean by any stretch we do anything else, and that's where I want to be clear. We would never allow them to do law enforcement.
Thank you. Mr. White, you are next.
Let's remember what the governor said when she signed that emergency declaration. She said that crime is so out of control and the police department is not equipped any longer to handle it. That is a true failure of leadership. I'm the only person up here who's a veteran. I was a member of the 82nd Airborne Division. It's a serious thing when you deploy your National Guard. And these are people who are trained as fighters for our military. We deployed them here in Albuquerque in such a way that they were put into polo shirts and khaki pants. That's not the uniform of our military. I believe the governor deployed the National Guard here for a very good reason, because I agree with her. Crime is out of control. I don't agree with the way that they were deployed.
And Mr. Sanchez.
Albuquerque needs 1,600 police officers in order to do the job correctly. When I came on the police department, there was almost 500 officers that were assigned to field services. That is way more than we have now. It's double back 30 years ago than it's been now. With the deployment of the National Guard, that means that we are in dire straits. One of the things that I'm upset about is that we took the National Guard the National Guard out of their role. If you're a military person and you are wearing camos and polo shirt, you're out of your role. Can you imagine if a police officer was deployed with a National Guard who is still in role and then can go to a domestic violence? You just doubled the amount of police officers and doubled the amount of crime fighting, making sure that they stayed in their role. Thank you.
And our next question is from Bob Clark at News Radio KKOB. Bob.
The city of Albuquerque has been employing more and more technology in recent years, like adding more speed cameras, bringing them back, shot spotters, and adding to the real-time crime center as part of a law enforcement strategy. How will you use technology in your administration to help fight crime?
Mr. Keller, you go first.
Well, this has been the hallmark of the new APD. And the reason is because it works and it's more effective and it's faster and it's cheaper. So when you think about the automated speed cameras that we already put out, they have reduced speed everywhere we put them. And also, if you get one of those tickets, it's actually a good thing because it freed up an officer that didn't give you that ticket, right? So they can fight violent crime. And so we already are in the works of doubling the number of automated speed enforcement. And with respect to ShotSpotter and license plate readers, we have that over 20% of the city. And in those areas, when there is a shooting, it used to be only a 50% chance that APD would catch you and arrest you. Now, because we triangulate all this technology, when we find the gun casing, we run it in the databases, there is a 99% chance we will arrest you and we will put you in jail. I need that technology safety platform over the entire city. That's one reason why I'm running for another term, because everyone deserves that kind of safety. It is absolutely doable, and that's why we have to do technology first and then civilianization and community policing.
Mr. White, your reply.
You know, that is a big difference between the mayor and myself. He believes that the way that we're going to fight our crime problem is through technology and through civilians. It's not. It's got to be law enforcement officers out on the streets fighting crime. He talks about this speed camera, that it frees up officers, but what it did was it gave up a vital strategy of any law enforcement organization. Speed cameras don't learn if somebody that they pull over happens to have a warrant for their arrest. That speed camera can't tell you if that person that they pulled over is up to no good. We have basically relinquished a major part of our law enforcement strategy to technology, and it just doesn't work. And let's talk about how it doesn't work. Over 50% of the people they're not even paying their tickets. And so they just ignore this. It's not slowing anybody down, and it's not changing anybody's behavior. And we are losing a crime fighting tool by relying on technology.
Mr. Sanchez.
ACS can't enforce the law. I wonder how many ACS or cameras actually issue warrants for their arrest if somebody's out there running around with a warrant. Is that camera going to be able to catch the individual who's running from a police officer? Is that camera going to be able to snap a picture and then later get followed up? We have rolls and rolls and rolls of camera film that has not been followed up on. And that is not the way to police. What we need is 1,600 police officers on the streets of Albuquerque to do the job. I would actually say if we need to change to tech, use license plate readers. License plate readers will actually do more good than anything, because they'll alert the police officers, let them know if that individual has a crime going on, let them know if there's a stolen car rolling by. Use that kind of technology followed up by an officer using a traffic stop or an arrest.
And Mr. Ubayez.
I'll take slightly different approach here. I think our technology, first of all, needs to talk to each other. So we need to think about county-wide how we enforce and leverage the technology that we have to enforce across the borders that affect everyone here in our metropolitan area. But I also think we need to balance that with safeguards for our privacy. So we're not over-collecting and over-policing in a time where the federal government is relying on technology to surveil us. And so for me, what that looks like is I know the power of our technology, right? Breaking the Solomon Pena case had everything to do with the power of the federal technology that is NIBIN, which is basically like a fingerprints for bullets. But what we can't do is over-police and over-surveil our population so that we are collecting information for the federal government. So there has to be a balance here, a smart way to both expand the network of what we are doing to catch folks driving serious crime, and also restrict the amount of information that we are collecting so that we're actually focused on changing the issue, right, which is making our community safer or making our streets and drivers go slower instead of...
Time is up, Mr. Ubayez. Thank you. And our next question comes from Shelley Rabando. Shelley.
Next year will mark the 100th anniversary of Route 66, which was once the backbone of Albuquerque's economy. A century later, many businesses are leaving Central Avenue because of high crime and open drug use on the streets. What's needed to restore Albuquerque's part of the Mother Road to its former glory?
Mr. White, you go first.
Well, what's needed, Shelley, is a new mayor. And I happen to know a guy. You're right. It is the 100th celebration of the Mother Road. And Congress has allocated a considerable amount of money to have a celebration all across the country, from small towns to large towns. Albuquerque is not ready for the party. It's an absolute mess. But let me tell you this, Shelley, one thing that's also important. We need to clean up the city of Albuquerque as it relates to the homeless problem because it is out of control. But we don't need to do it just when there's an event or a celebration. We all know that when Balloon Fiesta comes, everybody from the city goes out and cleans up our city. We need to keep our city clean every single day, not just for the people who are visiting, but for the people that live here and their quality of life.
Thank you. Mr. Sanchez.
I have a business on Central Avenue, and every single day I have to go out and I have to clean urine and defecation that has happened overnight. I've had my windows broken 6 times in the last year, and this administration said that they were going to offer help by offering small businesses help to fix their windows. I was in city council when I asked for that help, and that help never came. I asked his CAO, and she still to this day has not helped me out with fixing the windows. I wonder what other individuals up and down Central are going through. I know this is a leadership issue. Crime's out of control. We have no public trust. Keller is reactive and not proactive, and we are losing economic development down Central Avenue with the amount of boarded up businesses. We need to incentivize the businesses that are there. We need to make sure that we actually open up those left-hand turns so businesses want to come back to Route 66. We're not ready for our celebration, but we can be very, very quick if I'm mayor.
Mr. Ubayez.
Dealing with public safety and homelessness is foundational to changing the way our city looks and feels. If we don't solve for the problems that drive people to either crime or to the streets, then we will continue to suffer in the city that looks like the city we live in today. That means looking at poverty, at addiction, and mental health, and addressing these issues first and foremost, and not simply sweeping the streets and throwing away people's stuff so that we can clean them for a celebration like the Balloon Fiesta or like Route 66. This takes a deep investment in our community, not just the people who live on the streets and who drive crime, but especially our small business owners who are suffering along Route 66, and also investing in our artists and our public artists and people who can make our city beautiful and to develop a Route 66 that reflects the culture and the special place that Albuquerque is.
Thank you. Mr. Keller.
Well, there's just a whole lot of myths that are floating around, and I just have to call them out. I want to be really clear. Our traffic stops are up because we have speed cameras and we have them on Central. Our warrants are up, our arrests are up, but also what is up is how we're approaching and helping the unhoused. Because we created a department to actually do that. That's the real work that we do every day. Thousands are offered help off the street into the gateway system. You have to have somewhere to go, and you have to have someone to help them. That is what I've established. But we have to keep going. We've got to build on this momentum. That's why we're actually converting all these rundown hotels. We're closing them and we're converting them to housing, because that addresses both crime and homelessness and Route 66. That's also why we're doing it with vacant office buildings like the San Mateo building on Central, converting it into housing so that it's an asset for the community. That's how we help Route 66.
And we're going to stay on topic with homelessness. Our next question is coming from Dan. Go ahead, please.
With visible increases in homelessness across the city, what is your plan to address both immediate shelter needs and long-term housing solutions, especially in coordination with local nonprofits and service providers?
Mr. Sanchez.
Thank you. Currently, we have spent $300 million. This administration has spent over $300 million, and anybody to this day can drive up and down Central Avenue. We were just recently told that the pit count that was out there on the street, that's the amount of homeless people that are out there, has doubled in the last 3 years. That is what we're doing. We're attracting people to come here and commit crime on the streets. I don't see people who are just sleeping on the streets and are out there. I see people who are dealing drugs. I see people who are using prostitution and shoplifting and using the buses to escape the law enforcement. That's what I see. What we need to do is we need to make sure that we find solutions, and that solution would be to enforce the laws at the lower levels, making sure that we guide the individuals into projects that will push them away from homelessness and do valid treatment. Right now, we have treatment that is
Time
not
is up,
successful.
Mr. Sanchez. Thank you. Mr. Rubias, you are next.
I don't think that arresting everyone for jaywalking is a solution. But I also don't think that throwing away people's personal belongings is a solution either. It actually makes it much more difficult for a person to get off of the streets. And by the way, it's just a mean thing to do. I've walked the streets out in East Central. I've talked with folk who have told me that things as tragic as their father's ashes being thrown away. And the most common thing for a person to lose in one of these 200 sweeps that Tim Keller's administration conducts per week is an identification card. Losing an ID card makes it infinitely more impossible for you to get off the streets, to get a job, to find housing, to connect with benefits. Instead, what we need to do is a comprehensive approach of street medicine, where we do outreach proactively, of transitional housing, so people have a way out of the Gateway Center and into true housing, and implementing the sequential intercept model as led by Miami in our criminal justice system to identify people suffering from serious mental illnesses and connect them with services.
Thank you. Mr. Keller, you are next, please.
You know, to say things that aren't just true, I think is just sad. And to hear a politician stand up here and just lie about what we do on the street, I don't care about that. But you know who does? The workers who do this every day. We do not throw away IDs. And if we do by accident, those people are held accountable. We do not sweep, we clean. There's a huge difference. And we offer services and we offer help. We can do more than just let people be trafficked and exposed to drugs on the streets. That's what my administration is about. It's about solving the problem. It's not about just looking at it and wishing it was better. So that's why we created the ACS department. That's why we created the Gateway Center. Because when I came into office, we took care of 0 people every night on the street. And now tonight, city workers working hard every day to actually give people access to treatment, to help them. And we always offer storage. We do that thousands of times now. Every single night, 1,000 people get help in the city. What we have to do is keep up that momentum and help another 1,000. That's a future, that's a real answer. That's not a politician way out of blaming someone else.
Time is up, Mr. Keller. Thank you. Mr. White.
You know, Mayor Keller talks a lot about the hundreds of millions of dollars that he has spent on programs and services for the homeless. He talks in his TV ad about having made 1,000 beds available for the homeless. What the hell do we have to show for it? We have a homeless problem that is out of control. I have said, look, we need to go and offer the services that are available to the homeless. And if they don't take us up on those services, if they ignore us, we have to enforce the law. The laws are very clear in Albuquerque. You can't camp on the streets, on the sidewalks, on our parks. We'll give them an opportunity to take advantage of the services, or they will be cited or arrested. Some say, well, that's cruel. You know what's cruel? If you're a family that lives in that neighborhood where all these tent cities are, if you're a business that's struggling to survive in that environment, Mayor, you're not sweeping anything. You're just moving it back and forth. It's just homeless whack-a-mole, and it hasn't worked, and it's destroying our city.
Thank you. Mr. Mayor, would you like to have a rebuttal, 30 seconds?
I would. You know, if you think about what you're hearing, on the one hand, you're hearing things that simply aren't true and yet not an answer. On the other hand, you're hearing these examples of how we should just totally treat the homeless like they're not people. These folks deserve a chance at help. That is what my administration does at the same time as balancing public safety. We enforce drug laws. We enforce human trafficking laws. That's why we actually do clean encampments and offer services. You got to do two things at once when you're mayor. You can't just
Time is up.
Problem.
Thank
Doug,
you.
Doug, can I just say something to that? It's not what we're
like a
hearing,
rebuttal.
Mayor.
It doesn't reply. It doesn't qualify. I'm sorry. Our next question comes from Bob Clark. Go ahead, please, Bob.
Well, following up on that part of the conversation, all of you can answer this question. How will you plan to deal with the homeless people and their encampments for those who continue to refuse help and services over and over again?
Mr. Rubayez, you go first.
It's interesting to be called a liar by somebody who hasn't walked the streets and talked with people who live on it. I can challenge every single one of you out there tonight to go talk with someone in East Central and ask them whether their belongings have been swept and thrown away. And I know the answer because I do it. And so I think the answer does have to involve dignity. We don't have to fall to cruelty, because the problem is we are not offering the services that we are saying that we are, right? Have you been to the West Side Shelter? That's where the vast majority of our 1,000 people off the streets are. Those people are served by 3 caseworkers and no medics. They're 1 hour out of town. I have to take a bus in. And by the way, they give up their basic dignity to live there. They get searched. They have curfews. They don't have the right to associate with other people. These are not options any of you would choose. And I would never ask you to choose the West Side Shelter over dignity and freedom. We have to actually provide services and supports and long-term housing to get people off of the streets and back into our community.
Mr. Kelly, you're next.
Well, first off, we've all walked the streets. And I'm just saying every candidate, I was born and raised here, I live here, I'm on our streets every day. So I think we can at least accept that about all of us. And the truth is, we do have a West Side Shelter, the West Side Gateway, and it was an old jail, and my predecessor was the one who started that. What I did was rehab it. And now we also add services. And so it absolutely has more than 3 social workers. That's just wrong. That shows that you haven't been there and you don't know that much about it. Also, I know this. That's why we built the Gateway Center, is to eventually replace the West Side Gateway so that we have medical sobering, so that we have housing navigation centers for men and women, and so most importantly, that we have fentanyl treatment. And we already do street medicine. The answer to this is we have to do more. And that's what you see. You see candidates either proposing my ideas or just blaming the problem. I'm the one actually doing the work. That's why we got to keep it up.
Mr. Rubayez, would you like 30 seconds to rebuttal?
You know I've been to the West Side Shelter. You know because I set it up to the director who you fired for letting me take a tour.
She's not the director, and I didn't fire her.
She is no longer the director. That is correct.
Fact check. Channel 7 later.
Is that it, Mr. Rubayez? All right. Mr. White, you're next, please. Go ahead.
Mayor, it's not what we're hearing. It's what we see with our eyes every single day. If they took those homeless camps and those encampments and moved them to the country club, I would tell you would act within 2 minutes to make sure that they were taken down. That is not fair to those families that have to live through the unimaginable, the unthinkable, what their families are seeing, or those businesses. I will tell you, if I'm elected mayor, this is not hard. Those encampments come down on day one. As I said to you, we will offer them the services, but we will make sure they understand the law will be enforced. The reason why they're all over our city is because the mayor allows it to happen. It is going unchecked. And folks, the Journal, if you don't believe it, the Journal said 90% of the public 2 weeks ago said crime and homelessness are the issues that are affecting our quality of the most, and it's what we as leaders should be addressing.
Okay, normally I would allow for rebuttal, but I won't in this case because we've had 2 questions addressing homelessness. Mr. Sanchez, you have the final reply on this.
Thank you. Crime and homelessness is our biggest problem. We also need to have some economic growth, but our biggest issue is crime and homelessness. Again, I'm going to say it, $300 million spent, and look at the streets. They are not changing. We still have a problem. We still have an issue with drugs, and we still have an issue with fentanyl. Recently, we attended a forum, and the forum had individuals who actually were in this Gateway Center that the mayor talks about. And one of the things, I know he's going to say he went out and helped them, but you know what? He went and helped them after the fact. Again, I said the mayor's policies are reactive and not proactive. We should be out there vetting and auditing these programs. One of the things we heard is we lost one program who lost their contract, got a new program, and the new program is worse than the one that we left before. Under my administration, we will be making sure that all of these programs are vetted and constantly looked at to make sure that the people are getting the services they deserve.
Mr. Sanchez, thank you. We're going to move on to the economy now with a question from Shelley Rabando.
Graffiti, vandalism, and neglected public spaces affect both perception and economic vitality. What is your approach to maintaining clean, safe neighborhoods, especially in the business corridors?
Mr. Keller, you go first.
Well, this is what we've been working on so hard to revitalize our city because we're 40 years behind on this. But you see the resurgence all around you. We've been investing in Windrock. That has now been transformed and is an amazing place with one of the coolest parks in the city. We're adding amazing destination parks where families can be safe, like Wells Park and Phil Chacon Park in the International District. But we're also making sure that we build economic hubs all over the city. An example of that is 7th and Central. It is undeniably awesome and it's undeniably Albuquerque, and it was a curated plan that we want to use as a proof point to do in other places. We see the C&M Film Academy coming into the rail yards this fall. That is going to happen, and that's going to bring hundreds of students down to downtown every day. We're working with UNM to try and move them downtown as well to help the downtown core. And we're giving downtown its own control so that it can actually have its own rules and event schedule and its own tax revenue. So it's known as the Tax Increment District and the Business Development District. But we want to do this in other parts of the city too. That's why you see us working to make sure everything we can accommodate, like
Time
Tin
is up,
Can
Mr.
Alley and
Keller.
Green Jeans, are all over our city.
Mr. White, you go next.
Thank you. Shelley, you're right. The business corridor is important because that's the welcome mat to your city. When people are coming in from around the country, from around the world, to explore whether they want to set up shop in Albuquerque, the business corridor is going to be one of the first places that they visit. Can you imagine? Think about what Central Avenue looks like right now every single day with homeless people who almost look like zombies, who are doing open air fentanyl, some doing other things that are just unspeakable. It's disgusting and it needs to change. Mayor Keller said something interesting. He said that downtown, he wants them to be able to make their own rules and do their own enforcement. It seems to me like when the mayor keeps saying something, when he talks about technology and civilians, it's like he's giving up. He's like he's saying, look, we've tried, I can't do it. I'm putting the ball in your court now. Economic development is critically important. Let me also say, if we don't get
Time
a
is up,
handle,
Mr. White.
I'm sorry,
Time is
thank
up.
you.
Mr. Mayor, would you like a 30-second rebuttal?
I would. You know, the challenge around downtown, I think this is a good one where at least those of us who were born and raised here, downtown has been a challenge for decades. And part of the problem is that we look to mayors and politicians to fix it. I do think that's part of the problem. I agree with you. That's what I'm saying. I'm saying with our tax increment district, they get their own money and then they can decide what to do with it. The actual community, giving power to the community, I think, is leadership. That is something that I've listened and heard about for decades, and it's something no politician has ever been willing to do.
Time is up. Mr. Sanchez, you are next.
Thank you. When we get right down to it, it's leadership, crime's out of control, and the public does not trust the leadership. What we need to do is we need to change that. Put a new leader in there, and that's the bottom line. Did you know that there is no Fortune 500 company headquarters in Albuquerque? Did you know that we in Albuquerque are 5% over the poverty level on a national average? Those things are not good for our city. That puts us on the bottom of any kind of good list, and we need to make sure that we're changing that. Kirtland's the only game in town when it comes to large business, large corporation, and we need to change that. I will hire the best economic development director in the country to make sure that we have the business solutions that we need here in Albuquerque. We also need to make sure that we preserve and prioritize our small businesses so that we don't lose any and no one else closes their doors. Those are my priorities.
Time is up. Thank you. Mr. Rubias, you have the final reply.
We need to invest in city services that keep our streets clean, so solid waste is not sweeping encampments, but instead sanitizing and cleaning our central corridor. We need to invest in our small businesses, both through incentives and through building the environment around them. This looks like you taking advantage of the zoning changes that we've made to build in density, especially downtown and also along our transit corridors, so folks can live and walk and work all in the same area. This is how you revitalize a space. This is how you bring people to go and patronize our small businesses. This is how you build an environment that people want to live in, to walk in, to work in, and will love as the heart of our city.
Or staying on that topic, our next question comes from Dan Boyd. Dan.
Local businesses are the backbone of Albuquerque's economy. What policies would you champion to support small business growth, attract new investment, and ensure economic development benefits all parts of the city?
Mr. White, you go first.
Yeah, thanks, Dan. It's an important question. 2/3 of all jobs in Albuquerque are created by small businesses. You know, it's important, as I said, that we do welcome in businesses from around the country and around the world. But we have to partner with our small businesses because they are the backbone of our economy. They are what drives our economy. One of the things that we've heard on the campaign trail time and time again is it takes too long to get plans done through the zoning department. We've been told that there's times where it could take a year, sometimes 18 months, to get those plans back. And as a small business owner, I can tell you, if you have to wait 18 months to get your plans back, you're wasting money, you're losing money. You'll take your business elsewhere. And so I have proposed that we privatize that planning department and the zoning department so that we can get those plans through quicker, we can make ourselves friendly. Most importantly, I'll be a partner with small business,
Time is
not
up.
an adversary.
Mr. White. Mr. Sanchez, you are next.
Thank you. Small business is the backbone of our economy. It puts people to work. It puts high schoolers to work. It puts middle-aged adults to work. It puts people that need a job to work. Small businesses are everywhere. Albuquerque has over 40,000 small businesses, and we need to make sure that we're prioritizing those small businesses so that they don't close their doors. If a small business is in trouble, we need to make sure that we act. If there's issues that we can do to help, if there's things we can do to help that small business, we need to do it. With my administration, I will make sure that I use the city's bonding power credit rating to incentivize small businesses that can come in so that they can have immediate money for startup. If they want to scale their business or open another location, then we can help them. A small business concierge service will make sure that we are adequately protecting and preserving our small business.
Thank you. Mr. Ubayas, you are next.
In supporting our small businesses, we build the future of this city. So we first need to start with our youth in training and skills and support for entrepreneurship so that when they get out of high school, they can pursue their dreams. But it also means making it easier for small businesses to build, to start up, and to sustain and thrive here. That means not making small businesses have to be an expert in government bureaucracy just to start up their dreams. What we should instead be doing is have a customer service mentality so that when somebody comes to us with their proposal, we are getting them to yes as quickly as possible because that time lost is money lost. And finally, looking at how we can use incentives, right? Instead of giving them to our largest developers, we should be giving them to our smallest businesses in their first and infant days. That way they can grow and build the businesses that will drive our economy.
Thank you. And our final reply comes from Mr. Keller.
Well, I think you heard good ideas. What's missing is how to actually do them, and that's what we want to do. Workforce development is about partnering with APS. That's why we're part of the Career Academy to actually get trades back in the schools. We also know that it means investing in small businesses, but how? Well, we're offering all of our incentives to small businesses if they agree to hire 10 more people. That's connecting the workforce challenge to the incentive challenge. But you also have to look at big employers. That's why I supported Pacific Fusion. That's why I support investing in the future of America and Albuquerque. That even has to do with esoteric things like quantum computing. And so for me, it's about growing the employer base, it's about growing the workforce base, and it's about supporting small businesses. And that's actually how you do it, not just what you're supposed to do.
All right, thank you. Our next question comes from Bob Clark. Bob, go ahead, please.
As we know, there have been multiple businesses that have pulled out of the area around Central Avenue, widely known as the War Zone, the International District. In some cases, this has led to so-called food and pharmacy deserts. What will you do, if anything, to bring those crucial businesses back to the people who live in those areas?
Mr. Sanchez, you go first.
Thank you. I own an insurance company, and one of my customers was working in the Walmart that closed. One of the things that nobody really knows about, because Walmart's not gonna publicize it, but what she told me is that Walmart was losing over $7.5 million per year. $7.5 million per year. If you divide that down, that's over close to $400,000 a month that was walking out that door. Again, I go back to that same thing. Leaderships, crime's out of control, and there is no public trust. What we need to do is we need to make sure that the crime is under control, that we bring back public trust, and we make sure that we bring back economic prosperity to Albuquerque. I will make sure in my administration to look at those things and make sure that we bring and talk to those people before they walk away to make sure that we are taking care of them. Currently, right now, I have business owners, large companies on the west side who have come to talk to me at City Council and they've let me know how detrimental it is.
Mr. Rubias, you are next.
These are self-reinforcing cycles, right? So poverty, food insecurity, lack of pharmacies, lack of access drives us to crime and homelessness and the things that plague our streets. And as we said, crime and homelessness and poverty, addiction, mental health are the foundation of the problems that we are facing today. So it is our responsibility as a city to figure out how we get food, whether it's through corporate partnerships or in the community, through community gardens or through incentives to make businesses move in. But first of all, we need to make our streets safe. We need to deal with the underlying issues. We need to treat folks who are living on the street with dignity and the care that they need to move off of them. And we need to do smart policing so that our streets feel safe and our stores are not taken advantage of. And then we need to bring these businesses back so that people will not fall back into this cycle and that we have access to grocery stores, we have access to pharmacies, we have access to the basic amenities that we need to survive.
Thank you. Mr. Keller, you are next.
You know, describing the problem doesn't fix it. And that's what I do. I try and fix problems. And this is a good example of why I'm foreclosing on that CVS so that we can make it a community-run grocery store. That's also why I'm building a food market right in the heart of the International District on San Mateo next to the ACS headquarters so that we can have access to fresh fruits and vegetables. That's also why we're looking at all the regulations that actually prevent local farmers from selling to us each and every day, which is also cheaper and fresher. So it's about cutting the supermarket out. That's the challenge, and that's the executive order that I'm working on for next week. Now, I also want to share that some of these things, too, are national issues. I mean, retail, because of Amazon after COVID, is closing all over the country. And I mention that because we have to have local solutions to national issues. And those are the ideas I just shared with you.
All right, thank you. And Mr. White, you have the final answer here.
Yes. Last week we were at a forum, and a man stood up and said to us that the week prior, his mother, elderly mother, got ill, and he had to take her to the hospital. And they were discharged from the hospital at 2 o'clock in the morning. He said that he was discharged with a prescription that he had to get filled. He said they looked all over Albuquerque and they could not find a pharmacy that was open, and that they had to drive all the way to Rio Rancho to fill that prescription with his elderly mother. Those pharmacies and the Walmarts, the Walgreens, the CVS drugs, they're not closing because it's a national issue. They're closing because of theft, because of vandalism, because of homelessness. And that's a local problem. Mayor, it's one you created, and it's one that I will solve if I'm elected mayor. We have to clean up that corridor. It's so important to those families. It's important to quality of life, and it's important for Albuquerque.
Mayor, 30-second rebuttal.
You know, Darren's just living in like 2020. I mean, all of these stats and things that he quotes, they were true a couple of years ago. They're just not anymore. And I think that's the big challenge, because when you look at this issue, you know, there are deep challenges that we've had for many years, many of which actually you were a part of when you were community safety department, the officer shortage, the morale problem, the DOJ. These are all problems I've had to clean up. And now I'm doing the real work to actually do that. And that's what this election's about. It's about the future. It's not about 4 years ago.
Time is up.
You're quoting.
Mr. White, 30-second rebuttal.
Thank you. Yeah, let's go back, Mayor Keller. Let's go back to 2014. You like to talk about 10 years ago. 10 years ago, there were 30 murders. 2014, 30 murders in Albuquerque. 2024, 106. 3 times more.
That's 2022.
Mayor,
That is
please.
Go back and forth.
Mayor, please. Let me
That's the wrong
finish.
year.
Thank you. That is not progress. That is a crisis.
We're going to move now to immigration. Our next question comes from Shelley Rabando. Shelley.
In August, the Justice Department put Albuquerque on a list of jurisdictions it says has, quote, policies, laws, or regulations that impede enforcement of federal immigration laws. Under your administration, what will the relationship between the city and federal immigration officials look like?
Mr. Ubayez, you are first.
It's our responsibility as a city to protect our neighbors. And I'll tell you, as a DOJ trained attorney and the son of an immigrant myself, I know how to fight for this city. And I know that this city is going to stand up resilient by itself to fight the Trump administration. What I know from working in federal law enforcement for 10 years is that where they are going now is chasing after people with no criminal history. I know it's our responsibility as leaders here to keep our community safe, and that includes building trust in our law enforcement, building trust in our government. And if a person doesn't feel confident enough to pick up the phone and call 911 when they need help, then we are failing them. So I've released an 11-point plan. It's on my website. You can see of practical things that we can do to protect our community. It's everything from public education campaigns, spending our public money not on re-airing the state of the city, but on helping people know their rights, to designating sensitive spaces where we will protect people from federal overreach.
Thank you. Mr. Keller, you are next.
That is an excellent description of what I've been doing for the last 8 years. When this started, when Trump started separating children at the border, I stood up in defiance and I created our immigrant-friendly policy that does just that. This is a city that is safer when families feel safe to call our police department. And by law and by executive order, we do not work with ICE. And that's the right answer, so that everyone feels safe no matter who's in their home or no matter who's in their family to call APD. But also, we need strong, experienced leadership that knows how to make sure that we don't lose federal money. And that's why our policy also doesn't collect any information, none. That's why I can say we're in full compliance with every federal requirement. We share all the information we have because we don't collect any. That's what strong, experienced leadership is. I have a long track record on this issue. No one is surprised that I will always fight for immigrant families.
Mr. White?
Yes, Mayor Keller, you do have a long track record and you do not collect that information. And that data, if you were to collect it and turn it over to federal law enforcement officers, it would reveal that there are people who are here in our country illegally, who are committing murder, who they're committing violent crimes, human trafficking. Those are not the people that we want in our country. If you come to our country illegally and you're charged with a crime, your information should be turned over to immigration so that they can put a detainer on you and have you removed from the country. That's not controversial. That's common sense. We have more than enough of our own criminals. We don't need to have criminals come in here from other countries.
Mr. Sanchez, you are next.
First of all, I do not support the mayor's sanctuary city
that wasn't my
mandate
question.
that he
My
put
question
up. I'm a city councilor, and we are an immigrant-friendly city since 2001. Republican Hess Itema put that in the books, and everybody has been living by that. Also, there is also a provision in that law that says, unless otherwise required by law. So that gives the mayor the ability to actually execute and cooperate with individuals who are breaking the law in our city to make sure that, cooperate with the authorities who are arresting individuals who are breaking the law in our city. It's so important that we do not house criminals and harbor criminals in our city. With me, one of the things I've been dealing with is I have a business that has up to 90% Spanish speakers, and those individuals are thriving, working millionaires in our society, in our city.
Time is up.
And they're doing the right things.
We have one final question coming from Dan Boyd. Dan.
Sticking with the same issue, simple question. Do you believe Albuquerque should be a sanctuary city, and do you agree with that label?
Mr. Keller, you're first.
First I just want to acknowledge what you're hearing is people painting immigrants as criminals. That is wrong. That is unethical, and I think people should be ashamed of saying that about immigrants. So we also know at our city that we have a city council that has upheld my immigrant-friendly policy, including Councilor Sanchez, who voted for my policy. So we know this is working, but we also know this. We arrest anyone who does something wrong regardless of their status. And that's where Darren is totally off base. We enforce the law. We just don't check your papers. We just don't ask your status. So to connect those two things is not only wrong, but it's also not what APD officers want to do. APD officers signed up to work for APD, not to work for ICE. They're our police department. They're not the federal department's police force. That's also why the APD officers themselves have endorsed me and support me, because morale is up and they actually believe in what I'm doing to lead the city, even if we don't agree on everything. That is a whole lot against two people
Time
who
is
are
up.
former officers and a former law
Darren, you are
enforcement.
next. You have a minute to reply, but I'm also going to give you 30 seconds to rebut what the mayor said.
Thank you, Doug. Well, Mayor, 15 years ago, they allowed ICE to go into the prisoner transport center. And that prisoner transport center is where everybody arrested by the Albuquerque Police Department is processed. We allowed ICE to actually set up a laptop computer, and everybody that came through that facility was checked for their immigration status. And I go back to what I said. This isn't controversial. This is public safety. If you're arrested and you're in this country illegally, we should, and actually it is the law that that information should be turned over to immigration to let them put that detainer on those folks who are here illegally. This is, this is just common sense. We have enough criminals of our own. We don't need people. And Mayor, stop saying it's, of course, being here in this country, we're talking about criminals, people who are breaking the law, people who are committing murder and human trafficking. We don't want those people in our country. We want them to be sent back where they came from.
Thank you. Mr. Sanchez, you're next.
Thank you. Mayor, your policy, your directive is what put us in this position, and we face a deficit of millions of dollars, and that is wrong. And I will never support a sanctuary policy that protects criminals. We are an immigrant-friendly city. As I explained earlier, many immigrants are thriving and doing well in our city. We're talking about criminals. You want to protect criminals.
Mr. Mayor, you have 30 seconds to rebut.
Louis, you literally voted for my policy, like literally. And no one is protecting murderers. We will arrest anyone who commits murder and we will prosecute them for murder. So these are different things and you're trying to confuse them. So look at your own voting record.
Mr. Sanchez, yes or no? Did you vote for that policy?
I voted for what was an immigrant-friendly policy, not the mayor's directive. Not the mayor's directive.
Do I still get my
fine.
30 seconds?
League of Women Voters, did you allow Mr. White a minute 30 the last? They did not. I apologize. Mr. White, go ahead. You have 30 more seconds.
Louis, that law was very clear last year that you voted on. That law said, that change would have said, if you are in this country illegally and you were charged with a violent crime, human trafficking, or drug dealing, it would have required the Albuquerque Police Department to turn that information over. And you said during that debate, you voted against that. You were the deciding vote against that because you said you felt it was dividing our community. And so the truth is, you voted against it.
30 seconds, very quick.
I voted against that, Darren, because it was going to give the mayor more power.
But you didn't say that.
His DEI was going to support it, and also he was going to have total control of it.
But you didn't say that.
All right, no more back and forth, but thank you, gentlemen. Mr. Obias, you have the final reply.
These policies protect people. I look at it in two different ways. As a career prosecutor first, we need to be making sure that we are holding people accountable here in the United States. That is why we extradite people here when they commit crimes abroad, because justice is received when we punish crimes here. But second of all, looking at what's happening from the Trump administration and ICE right now, 70% of the people who are swept up have no criminal history. This means we are spending our resources going after the lowest hanging fruits and not after people who are driving misery in our communities. This is really important. It's like giving up investigating murders to investigate jaywalking tickets. And so I would also ask the mayor, since he says he is already implementing my 11-point plan, to now you have committed to implementing a mask ban, requiring identification for ICE, using city funds not for your state of the city address, but to actually do voter education, to designate sensitive spaces in our churches, schools, and our courthouses, and to make a legal defense fund for those who are wrapped up in our in ICE raids because we don't know whether their due process rights are going to be protected, and that shouldn't be determined by your income.
Mr. Mayor, 30 seconds.
We're doing all of that. You should spend more time actually looking at what we're doing as a city and the people who do this hard work each and every day in our Office of Immigrant and Refugee Affairs, and less time reading your own plan. So look at our plan. That's what we're doing. Great idea. I'm glad we're already doing it.
All right, one final quick question with just a show of hands. Is there a runoff election in about 2 months from now? If there is a runoff election, just a show of hands, will you commit to another debate? All right, 4 for 4. Thank you very much. Well, it's now time to give each of our candidates 30 seconds for a closing statement. As a result of our drawing, Tim Keller, you go first.
Well, I think you have two things today. Number one, you've heard a lot about people talking about the problems, about what they want to do, or blaming the problems on different things. That's easy. That's not leadership. What leadership is actually explaining how to solve the problem. That is the real work. That is the problem solving that I've been doing. The second thing is you're going to hear how the last 8 years wasn't that great. And I will tell you that's not what this election is about. It's about who is best equipped in these tough times to lead us and hold us together for the next 4 years. That's why we need strong, experienced leadership.
Time is up. Thank you. Mr. White, you are next.
Yes. Before you cast your vote, ask this simple question. What has Tim Keller done in 12 years that he hasn't done in 8? If I'm elected, I'm only going to serve 4 years. I'm not trying to pad my political resume or punch my ticket to higher office. I want to go in day one, roll up my sleeves, get to work, and clean up the mess. Mayor Keller is running to save his political future. I'm running to save our city. I'm Darren White, and I respectfully ask for your vote.
Mr. Sanchez, you are next.
Thank you. The definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over and over, and it's expecting different results. I'm running for mayor to stop the insanity. This is unbelievable. I am a retired law enforcement officer, I'm a city councilor, and a small business owner. I know what it is to sign paychecks, and I know what it is to sign policy. We need new leadership, we need experience, and we need accountability and transparency back in City Hall. I'm Luis Sanchez,
Time is
and
up.
I'd love to earn your vote. Thank
Final
you.
closing statement is from Alex Ubayas.
The mayor is a temporary custodian of a position that belongs to you, the people. You don't have to decide between going backwards with these challengers and going nowhere with the incumbents. My first 100 days, I will lay the framework for public safety that's responsive and gets you the answer that you need quickly, that deals with homelessness in a humane way, that builds economic development and possibility for our kids. Because this office, it's not a right, it's a responsibility. And it's an Albuquerque that will work for you. My name's Alex Ubayas. I respectfully ask for your vote.
Thank you, gentlemen. That concludes our debate. We thank the candidates, of course, for participating. All 6 will discuss the issues again on October 22nd when the Albuquerque Journal will host a candidates roundtable. KOAT and News Radio KKOB are also proud to be joining that panel asking the questions. Now, early voting is now underway. Through Friday, it's only at the City Clerk's Annex near 15th and Lomas. Most voting locations will be open from October 18th through November 1st. Election Day, November 4th. If no candidate receives a majority of the votes, the top 2 will be in a runoff election December 9th. Now, if you have not registered to vote, you can do so at the polls. Now, you'll be able to watch tonight's debate at KOAT.com and our app, and on the free Very Local app as well. And on the KOAT app and website, you'll be able to jump right to the issue that's important to you the most. I'm Doug Fernandez. Thank you for watching. Good night. The gloves can come off now.